Hello everyone, it's me, Samuel Yaw Fong. Today I'm going to read some chapters from my book, Unicorn Farmhand, that I published on Amazon. I wrote this book because I wanted to put an old school assignment from a few years ago to good use, play with cliches about horses, and I would like to reach out to a new and a different audience. This book almost took me a year to finish, so I hope you like it. Here I am, one of several horses who live and work at the Chang's farm in the middle of nowhere, or so it seemed. I am a stocky white stallion, boasting a wide neck and 4 broad legs with enough strength to pull a device that the humans call a plow, which they use to draw great lines along the dirt to plant crops that become food. Any typical day of mine consists merely of waking up, munching grains, pulling plows or carts, running around, munching grains, and falling asleep in my stable pen. At some days, I would have my fur and mane groomed or washed, both of which are good for me, although they make me feel annoyed for a while. My black-maned herd of human keepers consists of 2 elders, 2 mature humans, and 3 foals of their own. The elders are a stallion and a mare. The mature ones are also a stallion-mare pair, while the foals are a colt and 2 fillies. The 2 elders mostly spend their time within their big shelter, and the mature stallion and the foals are mostly away to only they know where, leaving only the mature mare as the most frequent sight who keep me and my fellow equines well fed. And she is a kind-hearted individual who talks to us and keeps her mischievous foals from hurting us. Their names, if I recall correctly, are Chang Dok, the elder stallion, Chang Lie, the elder mare, Chang Gao, the mature stallion, Chang Mai, the mature mare, Chang Shong, the colt, Chang Yao, the older filly, and Chang Lai, the younger filly. Unlike the other horses who preferred each other's company, I preferred to spend time with my human keepers. While my fellow equines are simple-minded in their repetitive pursuits, grazing, running, neighing, and rolling around, my human keepers have a variety of activities to pass their time away. When they are not at home doing who knows what, I see them staring into books, scratching the strings of a guitar, or placing little inedible plants into pots. But of all those bizarre habits, one of them delighted me the most, and that is their habit of writing. The old humans write on pale strips, which they put into a little blue box. The adult human man, Chang Gao, writes on bigger strips, which he puts into green or blue leaves. And the 3 younger humans write on their curious little books. If only they should spend more time writing instead of tapping on their shiny thin rocks, I would be very entertained by their fascinating habit. Perhaps I learned to write some letters from them, or it could be something that I learned when I was a foal. Regardless of the cause, I love to learn writing. I was entertained by the many curious combinations of letters that danced about, words, on the strips that humans refer to as pages. Whether those are forests of simple images that resemble what they see around them, or line like herds of repeated words taking different turns, the very light sight of sentences they form into lit my wide eyes with curiosity. So whenever any of those humans came near, I practiced with my 4 hooves or by holding a stick with my mouth. Yet for most of the time, the humans did not bother. As they curiously watched the colt and older filly kicked dirt back at my face, which was something their parents did not approve. But the rude reception did not stop me from my desire to learn their habit. After a while, I managed to make my own sentences from several words, some of which were frequently used by the humans themselves, while the other horses were restricted to understanding only simple commands like stay, here boy, or catch, as though they are lowly as those filthy dogs. Ugh. I know a handful of words that are more than all that the other horses have known. One evening, I wandered off into the jungle to hide from the humans as they were rounding me and the other horses into a stable for the night. When they turned away, I followed them, sneaking behind their backs and keeping my hoof steps quiet as they wandered off to the other ends of the farm. Then, as they were surveying the rest of the fields, I hurried behind their house. There I etched some text on a wall with a muddy stick and clumsily wrote on the ground with my hoofs, before I trotted back to my stable pen. At the next morning, I found out that the humans were muttering about someone who broke into our farm and wrote words on the house and the dirt path, so I galloped towards the mature man and started scribbling on the fence. The humans turned towards me, pooh-poohing at me with amusement and disapproval. "So, it's you, boy, who's causing the trouble," Chang Gao complained. I only whinnied and reared before I scribbled a crude yes. "What is it that you want, then?" he asked again. I scribbled with my stick. "To talk with you." My response only made the man and his mate chuckle. "But you are a horse, Dok Saau." Chiang Mai, the one who cared most for me, crossed her arms. "You only neigh and whinny, and that is all you do." "I love to see you write," I wrote. "It makes me more happy, not by jumping and doing none, but by learning from you." Though the humans were even more confounded, they came to an agreement with me. "All right then, Dok Saau," Chang Gao answered. "But you'll do your new hobby only when we instruct you to do so. Besides, I will not allow you to write to anyone else other than me and my family. Who knows if your skills might lead you into trouble." Henceforth, at the spare moments before and after my ploughing work, the man and his family did simple tests to examine my intelligence. At first, those tests involved answering questions and learning to respond in several more phrases, and they eventually developed into exchanges of written words. Those questions were answered firstly with simple yeses or nos, and then with requests. For instance, I would answer a simple test with a simple request to have an orange instead of the usual apple. The test became more difficult as weeks passed, that I ended up answering each question only with a simple sentence or two. Nonetheless, the most I got from all that was learning to write correctly with my mouth. At times, I felt like wanting to write some more, even when they are not testing me. And whenever Chang Gao or his herd catches me writing to those other humans, they often told me to go back, and they quickly erased my words. But it eventually made the other humans more curious about my talent and my ability to understand their requests. No matter how much Chang Gao would try to hide me from my friends, they kept asking me to write some words to them. To his dismay, all the other humans in the whole neighborhood knew about me as the clever horse down Angyan Road. From other elders to adults and their foals, they and the herds approached his entrance. With a disappointed look, he brought me before those humans, and when they clapped their hands, I took a bow. "Did you train your horse to write its sentences?" a Stanley man wearing a blue suit asked. "A little bit, but it seems that he already knows how to read Yosoje before I purchased him," Chang Gao answered. "Other than writing, he has an odd habit of looking at signs and printed text, to the point that we had to put blinkers to stop him from getting distracted at work." "And did you teach him to bow?" one of his colts asked. My eyes were drawn towards the fruit-like pins along his jacket. He turned toward the human colt studded with pins. "Maybe it's just a habit he learned from being a circus horse, or that's what his seller said," he answered. "My pony, Almond Bettel, was once a circus pony, but all she does is jump around," an older filly added. "She only knows a few commands, but your horse seems to understand what others are saying. So why not send it over to the horse fair this May?" Another man in a green shirt suggested. You can get famous from your horse's talent." Chang Gao shook his head. "No thanks," he answered. "And all of you should just leave my horse alone." After 2 months of ploughing and writing, I was sent to a particular event known as a horse fair. Although at first the man and his eldest colt were unwilling at first, they later consented to let me perform on the stage. After all, the letterbox was stuffed with so many invitations from their friends that at times it looked like a stack of hay. As I walked out of my trailer, some kind of big box with wheels, I saw all kinds of horses doing all sorts of tricks to amuse the surrounding herds of humans. To my left, one brown stallion leaped over a fence and was given a carrot to eat. To my right, another mare, "Ooh, she's pretty," rolled on the dirt and snatched a knotted rope with her teeth. And along my sides I was almost startled by the rumble of chariot teams as the riders yelled and cursed away. After a stroll through a dizzying array of curiosities, I was led up to a stage, where a woman hid me behind a great red curtain. Those fabrics split open to reveal a large mob of humans of nearly every color and hue. Many of them were as sandy as my owners, while some were like chalk, some were as clay, and some were as wood. All of them greeted me with incessant screams and thunderous claps, and they were even more amused when I greeted them back with a bow. Another woman turned my head towards those humans and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Dok Saau, the stallion who learned to write sentences in fluent Yosolcher." She wrote some words on a backboard using a white stick and presented 2 plants from her hands to my face. "Do you want the apple or the carrot?" she asked. Right. I understood clearly what she instructed. So I picked up the white stick and wrote with my mouth. I slowly spelled, "I want the apple." As the impressed humans clapped, I got a bite of the apple from the woman's hand. With a thick brush, she scrubbed the board clean and wrote again, "Stand on your 2 legs," and I did as she instructed. As the humans clapped once more, some of them wooed, for they were surprised to see that a simple horse as I was able to understand written commands. I did not know any other horse who was as fluent in the human's language as I was. The woman cleared the board again. Another human brought up 3 more blackboards before leading 3 more stallions up the stage. The same woman turned towards my owners and spoke. "If this stallion of yours, Dok Saau, seems to be smart enough to read in Yosolcher, let's see if he can be as smart as the 3 of the smartest horses in the fair." Chiang Mai crossed her arms and smiled. "I'm sure, Miss Irioturias, that he knows more than them," she answered. That mahogany woman, Irioturias, turned towards the audience and went on. "Let's hear it for Albandos, Sarolio, and Laipek, the 3 famed genius horses in all of Xiangwan." The crowd clapped and cheered again, this time for those 3 stallions. The owners' faces beamed with pride, but from as far as I could tell on those horses' faces, they looked curious, as if not startled, by the sheer noise of that human mob. Irioturias' assistant placed a little white stick at each of the 3 blackboards. "Each of the horses shall write a proper response using an edible chalk, just as Dok Saau did," he instructed. "If any of them eats his chalk, he shall be immediately disqualified." Each of the 3 stallions' owners gave the chalks to their horses, and to their owners' dismay, 2 of them munched those white sticks as soon as they were given. "Surely my horse can read some Yosolcher," Albandos's owner gloated, "and mine can obey dozens of commands," Sarolio's keeper objected. "And mine writes words with a stick to express his needs," Laipek's trainer joined in. "Perhaps Albandos and Laipek may stay, if what you said about them is true," Irioturias suggested. "And can your horse understand written Yosolcher as much as the other 2 do, Mr. Dongchailuk?" "No," Sarolio's keeper answered. "He only knows verbal commands and words, but not written language." "Then I'm sorry, sir. If he cannot read written Yosolcher, he is still disqualified." Irioturias led him and his horse down the stage. "At least you can have 500 yuan to make up for your losses." The blackboards were taken away and replaced with signs. The first series of those signs involved basic commands, which were wearing, bowing, and carrying a tray of cakes in that particular order. I was able to do all 3 of them, and so did Albandos. Undeterred by the noise of the human crowds, he glared back and snorted at me. Laipek only carried the cakes and reared, but he had to stay for the second test. The woman then told me and my opponent, "Write any sentence with your chalks that you can think about." Her assistant brought back 2 blackboards and handed over the chalks to our mouths. Each of us began to write. My opponent only wrote in single words. Albandos etched orange, and Laipek scrawled water. Even though their owners were fuming at the state's failure, many of the humans before them clapped their hands. Having understood what a sentence was, I wrote in their language. "One habit you humans have is writing." This time the humans were so amazed that I would write something as complete as a sentence that they cheered loudly at my effort. Irioturias felt that something was suspicious about me. As far as she and perhaps everyone else in Xiangwan knew it, there was no horse that was as smart as me. So she brought a remote, and with a flick of a button, she slowly waved it over my forelock. The woman then plugged the device to her computer. From another box-like device, it displayed a flickering array of green numbers and bars against the screen behind me. To their right, a circle swelled into two parts in different shades of green. Drawn by its juicy shape, I turned away from the confounded humans towards the apple. My eyes were fixed upon its fair depths, and my mouth yearned for a bite into its core. Just as I expected, Irioturias gestured to my owners. Your horse is actually an endangered unicorn. Only a unicorn could be that intelligent enough to understand one or two human languages at most. But he didn't have a horn when I purchased him from the pet shop, Chang Gao objected. His forehead is typical, and he did not have a habit of ramming his head against anything he sees. Genetic manipulation, Irioturias countered. Whoever who sold Dok Saau to you might have modified his forehead and erased his memories as a cult. Tell me, does your horse have any recurring nightmares, and has he recorded them out? My owner thought for a while, until his colt Chang Shong ran up the stage. If I recall correctly, he broke in, he used to write several words on the ground with his hooves whenever he felt scared. From this structure, I can tell that they looked vows on it. My owner's uproar and the other humans' cries did not bother me at all. All I wanted was the apple, and at least a bite of its green flesh. When several officers surrounded me and tried to bring me down from the stage, I shook my head and charged towards the screen's apple, leaping towards the green image before my hooves slammed against the dirt behind the stage. Then I began thinking about my owners, so I ran back to the stage to find them. When I saw that they were being surrounded by several strange men in blue and black clothes, I neighed and charged at those humans. With my hind legs in the grip of my teeth, I threw them here, there, and out of the stage. My owner and his herd were shocked by my sudden arrival, and the many humans watching all this backed away as soon as I had become fierce. Dok Saau, what in the world are you doing? Chang Shong asked. Some of those uniformed humans grabbed several sticks with lights dancing at their collar-shaped tips. As soon as I almost felt their lights touch the hairs of my coat, I slowly walked away, fearing that they might burn me alive. But when I saw those same men surrounding my owner's herd, I galloped forward. The threat that those men presented against my herd was more than my fear of their searing sticks. I stood between Chang Gao and the other humans, against those dreadful men in blue and their odd circle of sticks. Ears folded back, I glared back and snorted at them as I scratched the ground. Dok Saau, they're not monsters, Chang Shong spoke. They're here to help you. Help? I did not know what those blue men were doing to my herd, but I still did not trust them anyway. Though I kept warning them, they still refused to go away. When one of those fiends stepped forth, I approached him, stamped my forehooves, and furiously whinnied. I turned around to kick his face, but he quickly dodged my legs, and another blue man pushed the tip of his stick near my face. Everything went dark after that. I woke up from what seemed to be an endless slumber, and I found myself within a spacious pen. It was furnished with a bedding of hay and two shiny troughs, and its wooden walls smelled more fragrantly than those at home. Speaking of home, the very thought of separation from a human herd had made me worried. It roused me to charge at a pale door, bashing it with my hoofs front and back, as I wondered what horrible things might have happened to the humans that kept me safe. After several attempts, I smashed through the door and sniffed at the cold air. In this dark hall of a stable lit only by a series of hanging lamps, I turned my ears carefully for any sign of the humans. Voices, whispers, gasps, just any sound of flittering words. But all I heard there was nothing but scattered snorts and neighs. Beyond the other horses, several footsteps rushed towards me, accompanied with some hushed words by several angry men and crackling from those sticks. "Get him! Get him!" my pursuers cried. I began to think of an idea as they charged towards me. With my teeth, I grabbed a broom and nicked her. Such a sight as this did not intimidate them, as I expected, but made them burst into laughter. "Seriously, boy? Did you learn to fight by watching those Gong Pao films?" My weapon itself could not beat their sticks, and my grip was shoddy and unwieldy, so I turned back to find another way out. Before me stood a pale door. I turned around and gave a few kicks, bucking it continually before those men approached any closer. When their blazing sticks were about to touch the threads of my tail, I desperately broke the door with my forehooves, and I ran into a hall with black and white squares. Another human stood in a corner surrounded by a low wall topped with bulky machines. Shocked by my sudden arrival, he grabbed a collar-like device and tapped its buttons. As I looked around my strange surroundings, I spotted my herd of humans in another room, talking with a man in a dark blue uniform. They too were surprised by my breaking to the door, and from what I can glean from their muffled words, they seem to be wondering about how have I become more fierce nowadays. Aside from the whirring and beeping from the coroner's machines, I noticed something hovering over my head. It was a thin, dark ring with 4 little boxes, each with a red light blinking along its surface, accompanied by a floating, dark-colored pot flashing its red and green lights at me. Before I had any time to react, the ring clutched itself onto my paw, and it stung onto my head so quickly that I screamed and started bucking around in fear. "Help! Help me!" a voice cried from the device attached behind my ears. "Who is calling for help? What is going on?" "Relax, Dok Saau," another voice spoke. It came from the pot of lights, and it seemed as though it tried to calm me from my panic. "It is a machine that speaks out your thoughts, so that humans can understand what you really want to tell them. You don't need to read anymore, my quadruplet friend." I turned my head towards my owners, who sat down as a man in blue reassured them something. "What is my herd doing over there?" I thought, as I struggled to understand how my headgear worked. Your keeper, Dok Saau, has done something wrong by keeping you," the machine explained in the simplest terms, assuming that I, as a horse, would not understand much in spite of all that I had learned in the previous few years. "For what? He may not be a horse like me, but I belong to his herd. That is because you are a unicorn, not a true horse. Otherwise, you would not be as smart as you are. Unicorn." I remember that word spoken by that woman Eriodurias to describe me, but I had no clear idea on what is a unicorn is like. "Big rubbish bin?" I asked. "That pot machine does look like a bin to me. May I know what is a unicorn?" It hit itself with one of its claws. "You know a lot of things, some easy and some difficult things, but you do not even know who you really are," it commented and floated away. "Follow me, my boy." "Boy?" I objected. "That's a name for a human cult. I'm not a human and I'm not a cult." "It is not important." The black pot machine shined a blue window of light that displayed a strange-looking horse. "Unicorns are a kind of horse with a horn on their forelocks and a smarter brain. So far, very few true horses can become as smart as a unicorn, and there are no smart horses like these in all of Xiangwan. Then why is it bad that my owner keeps me? I'm just a horse who happens to be smart. There is a rule in Xiangwan that says that it is wrong for a human to keep a unicorn until he gives enough money to get a paper so that he can keep the unicorn. For what? There are not many unicorns in the lands. Many people kill them to make themselves happy, or they catch them and hurt them so those unicorns would dance and do tricks to make other humans happy. But I still think that I'm better off with my human herd rather than with a herd of unicorns. I don't think I can live well without being fed by humans. You can do it, Dok Saau, because unicorns are horses, so horses can always work without humans. I love Dok Saau and his herd, and I don't want to go away from them. It will be up to the animal police, humans who keep the land good, to choose what will happen to you. And what will they do to me? I cannot leave my owner and my herd. They will send you away to live with other unicorns, or if your owner can pay enough money, he can keep you. Thank you, big rubbish bin, I nodded. I hope that I will always be with my herd of humans. It is good that you are learning. Dok Saau and his herd walked out of the room, with several men in blue behind them and with various smiles on their faces. "Ah, so you've gotten yourself augmented with a translator, my boy," he spoke to me. With the ring in my head, I tried using my own thoughts to speak to my owner. "I don't know what are you talking about," I answered. His eldest colt cleared his throat. "There is a machine that sat on your head, and it looked like a ring. Now I know. The wildlife department has accepted my payment, so we can keep you." Dok Saau smiled. "That is very good." I whinnied with joy and nuzzled my head against his chest. "But they had set several conditions for you to stay with us. What are they?" I asked. "You will need to provide the names of those who gave you to me when you were a colt. Perhaps you may have known them in your bad dreams. Did you?" "Yes," I nervously answered. I wished that I would never ever hear those horrid names ever again.